Never.
Oh no, he didn't.
Girl, yes, he did.
Oh, welcome to another edition of Oh No, Girl Yes, podcast where we just be talking about what be going on.
Exactly. Oh, sorry, my eye just started itching. Sorry, people who are looking.
I know, because the people who listening didn't know. You could have just rubbed that eyeball right on.
But we get more and more people looking every week, so I'm like,
Is
okay.
that what it is?
Yeah, it is.
So thank you all for watching us on YouTube. If you're listening on any of the podcast platforms, thank you so much for listening. But don't forget, you can see our shiny faces on YouTube on the Oh No Girl Yes channel. And Patreon. Patreon's, the block is hot. The block is hot for Patreon. So that's our subscription where you get a lot more information. And when I say a lot more, keep in mind, when we do these podcasts, we aren't like trying to blow nobody's spot up. We're not trying to incriminate the guilty. We keep pretty above board. I mean, when we first started the podcast, we weren't even saying our names.
Right.
But Patreon kind of gets the real deal, Holyfield.
They do.
That's why you want to subscribe. We got a good episode of Patreon this week as well. So, but thanks again for listening. All right, so today's topic, we keep in mind, our topics come from our real lives. And so it's whatever we're going through. We say, you know what? Let's stop talking about it. Let's talk about it on the podcast. So we don't prepackage these conversations. It might be a topic that comes up and then we say, save it for the podcast. And so then we'll talk about it. So the topic for today is figuring out what it is you want. And within the last few days and weeks, I've had conversations, whether it was you or some other friends, about that, about figuring out what you want. So as single women, number one, all single women do not want to be in a relationship.
Amen. Yes. Very true.
Okay. So when you see a single man, but I think it's kind of a given with single men, but let's stay focused on women. So when you see a single woman, you don't have to feel bad for her. You don't have to feel sorry for her. You don't have to try to set her up with anybody. Just because she's single does not mean she wants to be in a relationship for whatever reason. It's her business. Okay.
Exactly.
Number two, if you are single and you do want to be in a relationship, this is where we have more of a conversation. Mm-hmm. It's okay to want to be in a relationship.
It is.
Because I think historically, because I never was in relationships, I kind of didn't allow myself to want them because then I didn't want to feel like I was being disappointed.
Right. Very true. Yeah, that's part of it.
Yeah. And then if you are in a relationship, that don't make you no better than nobody else. And that don't mean that's going to be the end all be all for you. You know, if you're still not happy. And I think the advantage that older single women have is that we do get a chance to have that independence and that ability to go and come as we please. And then by the time we do potentially partner, we have a really good idea of who we are. You know, we haven't had to do those sacrifices at a younger age because especially if you're building a family, there's going to be a lot of sacrifice involved. But when you're older, you've done more of what you wanted to do probably before you start taking on those sacrifices.
Mm-hmm. I agree. So, I mean, I'll speak on my behalf. I agree with you as far as when you're chronically single, it's easy to fall into that trap of, you know what, this is just who I am. And it's honestly how we started this podcast is just the singleness in us and making people feel comfortable with that. But I want to be happy with whatever stage of life I'm going to be in regardless, you know? So the single part of it has been fun, but I'm willing to acknowledge that that's not how I want to end I don't want the second half of my life to go that way, you know? Right. So that's why we've been working out things through the podcast and through our own conversations of things the experiences that we go through to see how we can become better, to potentially become a better mate to someone someday. So
right, 100%. And that's the one thing we did say is in the year and a half of doing the podcast, a little more than a year and a half doing the podcast, we've discovered things about ourselves or had conversations, and that's the point of this, is for us to talk through things that a lot of times, whether you call yourself successful or unsuccessful in dating and love, you don't really have a person to talk to about it or talk through it without a judgment, without a, you did this wrong or what I told you or this is like last time. It's like, look, I'm just talking through my stuff and that's all I want to do. So we understand how that has helped both of us to get to the point where we are today.
Right.
Whatever that is. Now, but the part about being single, chronically single, but also wanting to partner is you have more to bring to the table, I think. And you also have a greater appreciation for a partner. because you know that you didn't have a bad time by yourself, but you know that you could potentially, with the right partner, not just anybody, not just we ain't desperate, but we do have an understanding that if we had the right partner, it could be that much more. It's an additive. It adds to what we were already doing.
Right. Exactly. So, and I think that's part of the reason a lot of single women, older single women, fall into a trap of, oh, you know what, I don't need anybody, because too many times we've matched ourselves with the wrong person. And so you see that side of relationships and you're like, you know what, I don't need this in my life.
I don't need this.
I am better off by myself, because this is not. So, but if you get a glimpse into what a nice relationship can look like and feel like, I think it would change a lot of our minds as to, okay.
Yeah. I think most people have an unrealistic view of whatever it is they are not in. So I think people who are in relationships have an unrealistic view of what single people are. Like, you don't have to feel sorry for us. I think single people have an unrealistic view of what a relationship is like for the people that are in it. So I think, that whole grass is greener, but sometimes people think the grass is browner on the other side. Like, right,
yeah. There's both of them.
I don't want to have to do this, and this. Well, that just would be the wrong relationship. So nobody would want to be in that relationship. And I think so many times we get caught on that narrative of what we've gone through, not even with boyfriends or husbands or fiancés. That's what we've gone through just to try to get a date. And when those situations don't even come to fruition just for a date, we definitely say, you know what? I was so cool last week. I wasn't looking for no phone calls. I would rather just not have nobody calling or texting me than be doing this.
Yeah.
Then you fall back into that, like, you know what? I don't even want no man. At some point, you really believe that you gonna want a man. But I think we really be wanting a man.
I think it's genuine on both sides. Two things can be true. And then you might need to add an adjective. I don't want, or that type of man. You know what I mean? Type of man. So, and maybe that's the part we're missing, not the man part, but just like, you know what? I don't want that.
Exactly. Because then when we had glimpses of men that we would want, we're like, okay, but that's different.
I'll take a little of that.
I'll take some of this over here with a spot of that over there.
Yeah. So I think that's what it is. I mean, we just don't want that particular.
We just hadn't found the right ones.
Right.
And now that we might potentially, I'll speak for myself now that I am booed up, I guess, for lack of a better term. I feel like, and I haven't said this often or really ever because I'm chronically single, but I don't feel what I usually feel when I think I'm booed up. I feel relaxed. I feel calm. I've had moments of not feeling that, but I also realized that was what I was bringing to the table. And so that was those self-realization moments of, I'm so attached to anxiety. I'm so attached to the Fully Wang that it might not be that he's offering me Fully Wang, but this reminds me of the time I was. And so I'm reacting to Fully Wang when Fully Wang ain't happened. But it just reminded me of that time that it did, that time with somebody else. Yeah. And so I've had to call myself on the carpet several times and say, okay, now are you reacting to what this man is actually saying and offering you, or are you reacting to a trigger from what somebody else did? And that's the thing about with the podcast or anything you consume to make yourself a more self-aware. I think the more self-aware you are, the better. And when you're self-aware, it's not, oh, well, that's just how I am. It's self-aware of, hey, is this really helping me be a great partner? Does this make me attractive to someone? Is this going to sustain a relationship? And if the answer is no, you can't ask somebody to just accept bad behavior or oh, well, that's how you are.
Exactly.
So when we talk about figuring out what it is you want, I know at the beginning of this pandemic, I think most of us, not knowing anything. Everything is so the unknown. And I remember having a conversation with you about not knowing what I want in that way as far as a relationship. And then also when my current boyfriend kind of showed up, it was this thing of, well, would I even want a relationship, let alone with him? And so I did not know for the first few months probably of us interacting. But then once I had some more assurances and we had more communication, I know it happened, but I can't remember not wanting to want it. Because I do want it now, and I'm okay with wanting it, and I'm okay with embracing it. And I know when I didn't want it or didn't know what I wanted. So we're just saying, be open to it. Be open to change how you feel. You don't have to say, well, that's just how I am. I think that's the number one thing. Don't just be how you are. Mm-hmm. But the flip side of that is a girlfriend who does not want to be in a relationship. And she's been married a couple times. And she likes more of the chase and the butterflies than the stability and maybe the mundane nature of a relationship. And I had a conversation with her. I said, but you got to honor that about yourself instead of keep getting into relationships that are then unsuccessful because you didn't want to be there in the first place. Mm-hmm. So that's your thing. I told her, I said, girl, you belong to the streets. That is fine. You ain't got to explain that to nobody. We grown. If you don't want a relationship, you don't have to apologize. You don't have to explain it. You don't have to keep getting into bad relationships just because that's what people think you should want.
Right. I think, like dealing with your girlfriend, that's the perfect advice for her. The whole point of this whole episode is to figure out what you want and be honest about it. You know, I think because you got to be, you know what I mean? That's a part of it. That's a hurdle to get over. You're like, okay, let me be honest and say, yes, I want this in my life. So now
it's almost like a weight is off your chest when you admit it to yourself and say it to other people. You're like, and this is normal. You were created to want a companion and a partner, but because we've been so chronically single and we've been happy in spite of whatever anybody else tried to offer us, when we do want that, sometimes we hesitate to embrace it because we want to mess up our street cred.
Yeah, and it's okay to be happy and single. We've been happy and single majority of our single lives. It's okay, but it's also okay to open a new chapter and to step into that new chapter and say, you know what? Okay, this was great, but now I guess the point is not to let your happiness cloud your judgment on, you know, what lies ahead in the future. Mm-hmm. You know, just because you're happy now doesn't mean 10 years from now you're still going to be in that same space. So be honest about it, embrace it, and then go after it.
And let me add the flip side of what you just said. You said if you're happy now, don't let that keep you from being open to something different. If you were unhappy with something in the past, don't let that keep you. Because I'm back with my ex-boyfriend from 17 years ago.
Right.
And if I held on to what I had been holding on to for 17 years, I wouldn't be as happy in this partnership as I am now.
Right.
So I had to, one, let go of my happy singleness, but I also had to let go of the unhappy from 17 years ago.
Right.
In order to, be open. And so that's the biggest thing. I think maturity, a big part of maturity is offering up your vulnerability. It takes a lot of courage to put yourself in a situation where you might get hurt, you might get disappointed, but I think that's with anything. That's with anything that you put out there, whether it's your art, your talent, your gifts, your business. You know, you put yourself in a vulnerable position to be supported, you know, and to get what you're trying to do. But I think at this age where we are, and when I say this age, I just mean maybe 30 plus, you got to know that you got to commit to it. Get it back. And I know I tend to hesitate to put my all into anything because I'm like, because if that doesn't work out, I don't want to be left holding this empty basket. But I'm learning how to put more in each basket as I go along.
Yeah, right.
And it's going to go however it's going to go. I would like to think that I would have enjoyed as much as possible.
Right.
Anticipating the worst and holding back.
Yes, because even if things don't work out, you can look back on that moment and say, you know what, that was a great time.
Yeah, we had a good one.
But yeah, we did that, and then I learned from it, and then so it's always lessons to be learned, and I think experiences to be had.
But I think that's the whole thing with anxiety and worry. You waste the time that something hadn't happened worrying about something happened. And so if it does happen, you wasted the time that you could have enjoyed before it happened. Or
that happens on the flip side too. We can make ourselves so excited about something that's coming up that when you get it, you're like, well, dang.
That's it?
We just need to learn to be more in tune to the moment, whatever it is.
Right. Be in the present moment, whatever it is, and get all the joy, squeeze all the juice out of whatever that moment is. So whether it's single, squeeze all the juice out of being single. If it's being in a relationship, squeeze all. If it's just being in a dating situation, it's not really just enjoy that moment. We were talking about, I shared with you that when I was younger, going to the mall and see the kids on the merry-go-round in the middle of the mall, those kids, like, they were having the most amazing time in life. And then when you finally get on the merry-go-round yourself, first of all, you don't realize that unicorn is that hard on your butt. And it's moving that fast. And so you realize once you own the merry-go-round, it's not as interesting as it seems as it is when you the kid that's not on it. I don't think you've ever seen a kid ride a merry-go-round twice. And that's how I feel about relationships or committed, relationship. I think, when you're single, you're on the outside like, oh man, they're doing this and they doing that, and oh man, and then you get in one and you're like, and not that it's bad or whatever, it's just not as exciting as it looked. Because when you are in a committed relationship, like I said, my boyfriend will FaceTime, and I'm like, oh hey, I'm trying to look a certain kind of way, and he's showing me what all he bought from Costco in the freezer and his frozen vegetables, and I'm like, okay, but you see me? But that's just because we just kind of are,
right?
And I now have learned how to appreciate the mundane, because I used to always just have is he gonna call back? Will I see him again? Will he ask me out?
Right.
I ain't never got a chance to enjoy mundane. So mundane for me right now is pretty exciting.
Right.
Whereas somebody else is in that mundane relationship for 20 years, like, girl, be glad that you on them streets. Enjoy yourself. Don't sign up for this.
No, but I think, for those people, there are people who look at single women who pity them. And then there are others who look at them and like, okay, I need a piece of that. Like, I wish I could just hop on. I was telling you, I'm like, I might hop on a plane to go to LA this weekend. You're like, you know what? That's a single woman's statement right there. If I ever heard one.
Because it's
but I think that, both sides can realize that it's not always, it's green and something, but it got some dry patches over there in this grass. And so I think you would always want to appreciate your moment as opposed to looking at somebody else's life and saying, that's the life I want, because we don't know what's going on in people's lives.
We don't know what's going on with nobody, ever. But also, I think especially during this pandemic, during this critical time in our lives just on the planet, we really got to take more care of the present, which is a present.
Hey man, I'm all for it.
Here we go. Right now is going to be the best moment you can have. And so you got to live that way and embrace that. And that's what you put out your world.
Yeah, I agree.
So as we have figured out what we want, I will say, we can say our statements of declaring what we want right now. People have listened to this podcast and they have enjoyed how much we enjoy being single. Yes. They have enjoyed how we laugh at the downfalls and the shortfalls and the pitfalls of dating. And that's all you can do is laugh about it and keep trying to keep going. But I will say today, I am excited to be in a partnership, and I look forward to that partnership growing exponentially in the future together.
Right. Okay.
And what is it that you want now?
My statement is this. I still am happily single. However, I am open to meeting someone who creates an environment that I feel very comfortable in sharing my life with. So, I'm open to that. I'm not shutting down the dating experience, but I want it to result in a relationship.
But you feel a little bit softened right now, maybe more so than you had been earlier this year to the concept.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's all we can do is soften to the idea.
I feel soften to the idea. Because, this is a space I'm in right now. Next week I might be like,
next week. Yeah.
However, I think that, I think this is the best space for me right now, like to just be open.
I think being so independent for myself and being so chronically single for so long, and so much of my. Is being single, even if you count the podcast and how we originally started. Don't worry about the podcast. We will still be here talking about what we're talking about. But it is one of those things where I think somewhere in the back of my mind, possibly, in my subconscious, I wonder, well, who would I be if I had a man? Now, I ain't never been at no real threat to really figure that out.
Right.
When I was younger, I had moments of who would I be if I was in a relationship? Because I had never really experienced myself in that way. Mm-hmm. And my current boyfriend, when I kind of brought that up to him when we were first talking about becoming an actual couple, the way, and I think he's crazy 9 times out of 10, but that one time out of 10, he'll say something that I'll repeat. So he said, it's like you're a red circle and I'm a blue circle. And that's who you are. You will always be a red circle and I'll always be a blue circle. But where we overlap, we create a new color, purple. And so what we do together and what we grow together is new. But we are still separately red and blue. And you'll always be you. But when we together, we form something new together. And I said, I can take that and calm down and know that I'm going to always be me. I will be at my wedding talking about how much men make me sick. I can't stand them. Is he coming? Is he coming? That's who I am, and that's my life experience. So we just encourage people, don't apologize for what you want. Don't be afraid to acknowledge what you want and honor it and give energy to that. And again, I think I was more guilty of, well, I don't want it because I don't want to be disappointed. But then that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If I'm not giving you energy or faith and belief in that I can have it, fear of disappointment, then I ain't going to have it.
And then when you get it, you're not going to enjoy it because you're still worried about being disappointed.
Always. Abandonment issues, anxiety.
That's
all them things. So we encourage everybody who has fallen under our voices, just soften yourself to the possibility of what you want, because it might not be a relationship. Don't get in another one knowing that ain't your thing. You know, you ain't got to have 5 marriages just because people think you should want to be married or that means you're successful. If you belong to the streets, belong to the streets. Be smart, be careful, but enjoy yourself. That's a good time for you if that's what you want. And if you want to be in a couple and you want to have those vulnerable moments, you have to choose that and you have to open yourself up to that. It ain't gonna just happen. Don't we know it? So anyway, did you have anything else to add?
No, I think that's pretty good. I just
episodes where we both soft. I like it when we be like, and then what he better not do. I mean, he hello, no, he didn't. I don't know, y'all. We might be growing up. We're maturing.
Yeah. I'm gonna save this clip for a future episode, and we're just gonna insert it in. Like, remember when they were real soft that time?
Remember that time they liked men? Remember that week?
They liked me in that week, and then it was
write it down, take a picture. If we don't know nothing, we know that will change. But for now. Oh, no, he did.
Girl, yes, he did.